military family. So here today we're going to be talking, this is normally a 3-hour class, so I'm going to give you a very short, the cliff notes of how to do business as a veteran. How can I take advantage of my veteran status and actually go after federal contracts? But before we start talking about that, I'm going to talk for about 2 minutes about the nonprofit that I work for, which is called Community Business Partnership. And we are under the umbrella of George Mason, under the MEC, which stands for Mason Enterprise Center, and we're very proud of being part of the Mason family. And in our center, located in Springfield, Virginia, we have 5 different centers, so we're kind of like a one-stop shop for small businesses. We have this Women Business Center, and don't be fooled by the name. The Women Business Center serves the pre-startup and startup companies, so they provide training, one-on-one consultancy for those businesses who are about to start. The big focus is on actually getting people to write their business plan. Without a plan, you don't know if you're coming or going. The other center that we have is a Small Business Development Center, and that focuses on businesses that have been around for at least 2 years, and they want to go to the next level. When they're thinking about expansion or opening a second store or something, this is where we come to help you. The third center that we have is the Business Finance Center. We're a nonprofit lender. So we actually do those microloans between $500 to $1,500 that the banks are not really interested because they don't make any money out of it. We've been pretty successful. We have tapped out. We're looking for more funding. We also have a BBOC. Our main focus is going to the military installations and teach something that is called Boots to Business. It's a 2-day course in which we teach the veterans or people who are about to transition what it takes to start a new business. So it's a very broad overview. We also teach something called Reboot, which is outside of the military installations. Right now our territory is Northern Virginia, DC, Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania, so I travel a lot. We're covering 22 installations at a time. And the last thing that we have in Community Business Partnership is we're also a business incubator, which means that we provide that kind of services. If you're ready to, if you have outgrown your home business and your home office and you want to move into a space, but you're not quite ready for the commercial rent, we're that in between alternative. We also provide virtual business office in which we provide mail services for businesses. Sometimes when you start your business, you don't want to put down your home address, and it looks more professional if you receive your mail, your business mail in a official mailbox. So that's in a nutshell about what we do. But now we're going to dive into, how can I start taking advantage of my veteran status and maybe go for federal contracts. So, all right. So we're going to talk about, are you ready for federal contracting? Is there anything else that I can take advantage of, like local opportunities? And what is the difference between, and I do this, between certification and verification, because I'm a kinesthetic learner. They're different things, and we're going to talk about them. Before you launch your federal contracting business, it is a business, so you have to do all the things that you do when you start a business. You need to get a business registered, you need to have a business plan, you need to get all the licenses. So once you have all that in place, then you start thinking about how can I actually start a federal contracting. Once you have your business set up, and you have all the legal nuts and bolts taken care of, then you start thinking about your pipeline, which is when we should start thinking about, okay, are there any federal contracting opportunities 6 months from now? Or are there any opportunities a year from now or 2 years from now? Because that's how you start thinking about federal contracting. What is available now, and in a year, and in 18 months, and in 24 months? What are the agencies? How do I do this? Is there any centralized place where I can get this information? I'm going to delve into that. So, why do you want to do businesses with the federal government? Anybody? Why do you want to do businesses with the federal government?
They pay their bills.
They pay the bills well.
They pay their bills.
They pay the bills. They are the world's largest buyer. They buy everything. from landscape services to light bulbs to event planning to massage therapy. I mean, whatever you think, they buy because they don't produce anything. So whatever you are offering, it might be, they might need it. However, you need to know a way in which you can actually market it. Right now, a few years ago, the SBA had a study. They were trying to see how much was the federal government supporting small businesses. As we know, small businesses is actually the engine of the economy. It is the one that actually create employment, jobs. So a few years ago, they rated the federal government and they gave it an F-. They were not doing their job. So they got their act together and now they're rated with an A+. So 23% of all the money spent in federal contract needs to go to small businesses. However, they are the one who decides what is a small business. It depends by industry, and it depends by industry depends about the revenue that you create and the amount of people that you employ. So, have you heard about business set-asides? Anybody? Yeah. So, there are categories in which they set aside a certain percentage of all the money that is going to be spent in federal contracting. And this is actually to give these groups an advantage. So we have women-owned, disadvantaged, economic disadvantaged, Hobson, and then here we have the service-disabled, veteran-owned, and any small business. If I am a veteran and I am a woman, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be able to get more contracts. It means that I am available to actually bid for more contracts because I'm available to bid for women-owned, and I'm also available to bid for service-disabled. Everybody following me? All right. So you can be as many as you want. If you live in a hub zone and you're women-owned and you're service-disabled, you can actually go after those opportunities. If I don't live in a hub zone, but I think that I have what it takes to go after that contract, I can always apply and they will tell me, thank you for your submission, but we're actually looking for people who live in a hub zone. So make sure that you stay within your within your set aside. Now, how do I let the government know that I belong to one of those categories? And that's where verification and certification comes into place. To be able to participate in any of those set-asides, they have requirements. You must be an American citizen, you must be a small business, and about 99% of all businesses in the US are considered small businesses. If you're gonna go after the veteran owned, it needs to be a majority control. 51% needs to be owned by veterans. Let's assume that the three of us decide to do a business. I did not serve, but they did. And we split the business in three different portions equally. So 33, 33, 33, the two of them together own 66, that's fine, that actually goes under the veteran owned. But if the three of us serve, we add the fourth one, and the two of us have not served, and we divide it equally, now only 50% falls under the veteran owned, under veterans. So that would not make it. So we need to make sure that the veterans are the ones who own at least 51%. It must be selling something of value to the federal government, and that sometimes they buy everything, but we need to make sure that we're selling it in a way in which the government is looking for it. And this is the stickiest part. The business must demonstrate potential for success. They're looking for past performance. When they send out a RFP, which is a request for proposals, and you decide to answer, they assume that you know what you said that you're going to do. If I am a landscape service company and I answer one of those RFP, they assume that I know how to do landscape. Their question is, do I know how to do landscape services within the scope of the government size? They want to know if I know how to handle a federal contract. So it's kind of like a little tricky because if I'm a new federal contractor, how can I prove past performance? What comes first, the egg or the chicken? So now I have to be like, oh, how can I get that past performance? Well, they say that you must have past performance within the similar scope and size. They don't say that it has to be federal government. So just a little bit of overview about small businesses. We have about 28 million registered businesses, small businesses, and about 2.5 are veteran-owned businesses. Now, when I think about that, that's a little bit about 10%, so I might say about 9% of businesses are veteran-owned. What is the percentage of the population that actually serves?
1%.
About 1%. So what does that tell you?
They're looking for people.
Well, actually, not only that,
Yeah.
the veterans actually are really outperforming every single group.
Yeah.
If you guys are only 1%,
Yeah.
but you guys are doing 10% of the businesses, and you're doing very well, that means you know how to do this. However, I cannot be and say like I'm a veteran selling IT services. It's you and $50,000. You know, you need to find your niche. Let me try this again. Oh, there you go. With federal contracting, yes, it takes about 18 to 24 months to get your first contract as a prime contractor. It takes long. And you know why it takes long? Because the federal government takes a long time to actually buy something. It goes through a process from actually identifying a need, to do market research and see if anybody out there who can do this, to then write an actually proposal, a request for proposal, to get their proposals, review them, and then finally assign the contract to somebody else. So that's why it takes so long. And then you have to think that once you get a contract, you don't get paid right away. You know, you have to perform and submit an invoice, and then they will pay you. So you have to see, how can I actually build that past performance they're asking me to have, but also how can I make money and pay my bills? And this is when, you know, like we can start looking about the smaller and local opportunities. The Chamber of Commerce, they do this a lot. They do recognize veterans, businesses that actually are performing very well in the community. I did get the numbers from Prince William County, but I did not update them. But Prince William County also buys a lot, so that's something you can go after to actually build that past performance. Just along Fairfax County, procures 600 million in goods and services annually, and that does not include construction or the schools. So there's a lot of opportunity there. On the state level, Virginia procure $8 billion annually. So this is a way you can actually get that past performance and get money to pay your bills. For the state of Virginia, it's a little different how they do procurement at the state level. It's a bit easier actually because everything is centralized. They use something called EVA, which stands for Electronic Virginia. And to learn more, I included the site. At a state level, as a veteran, you do not get a set aside, but you do get a preference. If two businesses are competing against one contract opportunity, and one of them is a veteran-owned or service-disabled veteran-owned, you might get the contract because you get bumped up. Now we're going to go back to federal contracting, because what is the difference between being self-certified and being verified? And it's quite simple. If you want to do businesses with the VA, the Veteran Administration, you have to be verified. And that's a whole process. If you want to do businesses with the entire federal government but the VA, you just need to be self-certified. Which one do you think is easier to get first?
Self-certified.
Self-certified. So we advise people to just get the self-certification first and then work toward their verification. They all will ask you about the same paperwork, which we have We'll go over them. It's in this handout, and we'll go briefly about it. But the difference is with self-certification, once you get self-certified through SAM, which stands for, oh my God. Systems of Water Management, you get your case number, which is your number to be able to do federal contracting. You can actually start bidding, and at some point they will ask you for the documents. With the VA, you have to submit all the documents first, and then wait to see if you get verified. To be able to do businesses with the U.S., you need to be a U.S. citizen. You need to have served in the military, anything other than discernible discharge. That includes reserve and guard on active duty. And you need to have a disability rating between 0 and 800. Just a letter from the VA saying you have a disability rating. I've never heard of anybody getting a disability rating of 0%. My dad always said, you have?
You do.
Yeah?
You just have to apply.
You just have to
Which means
apply?
you're in the system.
Yeah?
Yes.
But nobody gets say like, no, you don't get a letter. At some point you get a letter saying from
You get a
0.
letter saying
Yeah.
0, which means that
You're in the
they're
system.
saying that they know you have a disability. You're not getting that monthly monetary benefit, but you actually have that disability that you can go to the VA for that specific benefit, medical benefit.
Yeah.
May turn to non-zero later in life.
My dad always says that there was nothing wrong with him going into the service.
Lost an opportunity.
After serving, there was something wrong about it. It's like either by servicing or aging or something, in the end, you get something. So this is what you need in order to actually start the process. Ownership, we talk about it. As a veteran owner, 51% needs to be owned by the veteran. And they are very, they really go after, they really are very careful about it, because there's been a lot of scams in which they do what they call rent a vet, and they put a vet as like the CEO and 51% owner, and the person doesn't know how to run a business, or the person has dementia, so they're very strict about it. And direct and unconditional ownership, this doesn't really apply to Virginia, but in some states there's something called community property. When people get married, it is assumed that everything is split half and half. Control. The veteran needs to be the one actually making all the decisions, or being the one having the last say. And it has to be in both, in the strategic, like what's going to happen with the business long term, and what's happening on a day-to-day. It needs to have some managerial experience if you're running a business. And it needs to be the highest officer in position. Once again, they're trying to get to really identify those rent vet scams. If for some reason the veteran is not the highest paid officer, there needs to be a letter explaining why. And that happens in cases in which somebody has a great idea, but they don't have the technology savvy knowledge, so they can actually bring somebody on board, and they just need to explain, hey, I'm running the business, but I need this person's talent to be able to provide the service. And it devotes significant working hours to the business. Once again, if you have a 9-to-5 job and you're trying to go after federal contracting, you need to explain how you're going to actually, when you're going to be working on the federal contracting business. What's the actual VA process? And this one has we have these handouts in which they require you, they tell you the documents that they require you to actually have when you start your verification process. So you need to have, here it says that there's pre-application, but nowadays they ask you to submit everything at once. In the past, they asked you to do things in phases, but now they ask you to have everything. So in the beginning, they will ask you, and remember, this is the government. If they ask you to submit the paperwork in a certain order, it is to your benefit to submit the paperwork in that order with that name. They're always looking for non-compliance and sending things back because you did not do it the way they ask you to. So as you start your verification process, they will ask you for these documents, general information, licenses. They want to make sure that you have all the licenses that you need in order to start your business. Resume. They want to see that you have actually experience managing business. In the financial information, they will want to see your tax, personal taxes for you and the people who will be in the business as managers. If the business, for example, here they ask you for the K1 tax form, which is the business tax form. Well, what happens if I'm a new business and I don't have a tax form yet because the business is being newly created? Then you submit a letter that says, I haven't filed taxes because the business was created 6 months ago. So with these documents, if any document that they're asking you for, you don't have because the business is newly created or you just doesn't apply to you, you submit a paper saying, this doesn't apply to me. If you fail to submit that paper explaining that, they will assume that your application is incomplete. Then we go to the back and they ask you for payroll because they want to see that the veteran is the highest paid officer in the company. And they want to see signature cards, which are the merchant cards. They want to make sure that the business financials are separated from personal finances. They will ask for contracts. They want to see if you have had any contracts in the past, and if you don't have any because you're new, then you write that, no, I don't have any contracts yet. And the section, which is the management information, they will want to see the management agreements and the operating agreements. And the management agreements, they want to see that you actually have a physical location for your business. And for the operating agreement, and this is a part in which most veterans and most people actually need legal help because this is a part that actually tells the VA that you are eligible and you are in control of your business. Because sometimes it might look like you have the ownership, but you're not in control. So for this, actually, most of nonprofits will actually can help you with this. We normally have lawyers that come and help veterans with this part of the application process. The legal structure, they will ask you for voting documents. Once again, if your company does not do voting because it's an LLC, you submit that paperwork. Shareholder agreement formation, they would ask for the official certificate of formation. And this is sent to you by the state. Once you register your business, you will receive a certificate of formation. And the minutes, if you have any minutes, you submit that. Articles of organization that also comes to you when you register your business. Stock, franchise agreement, if you have that, you submit it. If not, you explain that you don't have it. Things like joint venture agreement, mentor project, and additional documents. You submit that, or you submit a letter explaining why not. And here on the bottom, it tells you, and I know this is very, but you know, it tells you about the type of files that you can actually upload with the extensions. Please follow those. Otherwise, it might be rejected, even though your application might be perfect and it has everything, they will want it on those. So this is your process to actually do your verification with the VA. Is it confusing?
No.
It can get confusing, and this is why we're here. The VBOG is here to help you with that process. We do provide free one-on-one counseling to make sure that you get your paperwork done. We advise do not submit your paperwork without having somebody take a look at it. Have some legal eyes take a look at your document, have a certified counselor take a look at your documents, and then send them out. Because once you get rejected, you have to wait 6 months to reapply for the verification process. All right? So now we're gonna go to the certification, which is a little bit simpler with the SBA. This is how you self-certify. You go to the profile and you just click here. I'm veteran-owned or I'm service-disabled veteran-owned business. So this is it. This is what you have to do for the SBA. You just self-certify and then you get your case number, which is your number to be able to do businesses And then they will ask you, please submit whatever paperwork you need to actually support this claim that you are a veteran-owned business. Once you start this process, it's pretty extensive. You start with this, and then you have to answer about 100 questions. And they start very simple from like, are you an LLC? Are you a partnership? And then they will ask questions as like, do you use child labor? And you answer accordingly. You have to answer all the questions because they don't allow you, I know. They don't allow you to actually skip a question. So make sure that when you are doing this, you have all the paperwork with you, like your articles of organization and all these things, so you can actually, once you start, you can actually follow up, and that way you use your time wisely. They keep changing things on us because it's the government. Go to this website, please. Meet with the VA certified counselor. That's awesome. The VBOC, we're both, me and my supervisor, we're both certified counselor. Register, complete the registration, and you have more information. Becoming a federal contractor is not easy, but it's not impossible. There are other resources like PTAP, which stands for Procurement Training Assistance Program or Center, and we have one in Virginia. We work very close with them. Their main focus is to actually give the training to become a federal contractor. At the center, we also have, and I left the flyers there, we offer classes as to like how to become a federal contractor. And during this fall, we've been actually teaching, we've been bringing experts from the field, teaching things like how do I build my pipeline, how do I set the right price for my proposal. Oh my God, I got my first federal contract, what do I do? I don't think it's fair, how do I protest? All these are taught in like 3 hours classes. Becoming a federal contractor is a whole different career. So this is very, very high level presentation that I just did here for you guys. But if this is something that interests you, or you know people that would be interested, just send them our way, and we will be very happy to actually direct them to the right resources, because there's a lot of resources out there. Final thoughts, just like with anything, write your business plan and start working your pipeline. Start identifying which opportunities you want to go after. Get certified, because it's far easier than getting verified. Start small. Find other companies that you can subprime with. The big companies that actually go after federal contract, they have a requirement to team with smaller businesses. Find a mentor. The SBA has a program, Mentor Protege, in which you actually get to learn from somebody who's been there before. Leverage available training. Don't pay for what you don't have to. The SBA has a lot of partners that actually provide a lot of free or a very low-cost training to you. And build relationships. Even though we have a lot of technology nowadays and people love email and social media, we still want to meet people. People tend to do businesses with people that they like, they trust, and they know. So once you identify an opportunity that you want to go after, start talking with the person who's actually going to be, with the agency that is actually going to be assigning or awarding that contract. This is really about relationships, all right?